So before we get into more stylized reverb sounds, I just want to go over some of the parameters in LX480 that make it a sample accurate recreation of the original hardware. Now, what will be pleasing for most of you is that in its default configuration, LX480 will operate like an exact replica of the original hardware. But if you want to turn off some of these settings, I'm just going to show you now where to look. So, in the setup menu, you need to go over to the second tab called Config. And here under the bottom in the emulation settings, you've got 4 options that you can turn on or off that make it less like the original hardware and perhaps more modern sounding. So the first one here naturally converts the incoming audio to the native sample rate of the original hardware, which was 18-bit. So the analog to digital and digital to analog converters in the original 480L were 18-bit. If you remove this, the processing happens natively at 32-bit floating point. So what this is going to do is potentially give you more of a modern reverb sound and a slightly longer reverb time mid. The next one across models a various saturation that happens internally in the algorithm due to some of the chips that we used. The third option we leave off because it was actually a bug in the original hardware when shape and spread settings were all the way down. We don't really need to worry about this because it was obviously a mistake in the coding of the original hardware, but just in case you're one of these tweak heads that actually liked that problem, you can turn that on. And finally, in the original hardware, the modulation part of the algorithm was actually only 8-bit. So by turning this on and off, takes that modulation algorithm and the modulation part of the entire algorithm and makes that 32-bit floating point as well. So when you want to get the most accurate representation and the most accurate recreation of the original hardware, you want to make sure that these settings are on, okay? And to make extra sure that you're operating LX480 like the original hardware, you can also switch to hardware mode. And what this is going to do is remove any additional parameters that Relab have added to LX480. So you're only going to be given the parameters on the original hardware, and therefore, without you even trying too hard, you can keep it authentic to the original. So let's dive in and see what the original sounds like.